Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, frankly unprecedented shift that's happening right under our noses. We are looking at the European Union's absolute race against geopolitical time to completely overhaul its digital infrastructure. For decades, Europe kind of coasted on the convenience of imported tech. It was easy. But in our increasingly volatile world, that convenience is looking a whole lot like a dangerous dependency.
Okay, to really grasp the stakes here, I want you to imagine a total digital blackout. Just picture a scenario where banking systems completely freeze up, healthcare records become totally inaccessible, and government communications just go offline. Sounds like the plot of a blockbuster sci-fi thriller, right? Well, for European officials, it's become a very real, very terrifying nightmare. They're realizing that because they don't actually own the underlying infrastructure of their own digital societies, a sudden shift in foreign policy, or even just a sour transatlantic relationship, could literally shut their countries down. And that terrifying thought brings us to Section 1, Europe's digital wake-up call. Let's look at Section 2, the risk of foreign reliance. So, for years, there's been this deeply ingrained, kind of conservative procurement culture across Europe. Honestly, it was just easier and usually a lot cheaper to maintain the status quo and buy off-the-shelf tech from abroad. But that comfort syndrome has resulted in a staggering concentration of foreign power. Just look at this. 3 U.S. companies, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, control roughly 70% of the entire European cloud market share. 70%. That is a glaring vulnerability. If a foreign executive order suddenly cuts off access to those vital servers, Europe's national security is essentially completely out of its own hands. And lately, geopolitical shocks have acted as the ultimate catalyst for change. The supply chain vulnerabilities we all saw during the global pandemic, that was a warning. But the Russia-Ukraine war, that was a deafening alarm bell. Get this, a massive 89% of surveyed European enterprises reported that the war directly forced them to focus on finding sovereign cloud solutions. Organizations across the entire continent are having to radically rethink exactly where their critical data lives, and more importantly, who has the ultimate authority over it. Which leads us to Section 3, defining digital sovereignty. To combat this overwhelming reliance, the EU has adopted a core strategic framework. Now, digital sovereignty is basically all about a region taking back physical and digital control of its strategic assets. It means ensuring that nation-states exert ultimate authority over the digital businesses, the algorithms, and the data operating within their borders. Basically, local laws absolutely must apply to local data, completely free from the overlapping, messy legal jurisdictions of foreign powers. And there is immense political weight behind this movement right now. EU President Ursula von der Leyen actually highlighted at Davos that, and I quote, "We need to build a new form of independence." She is making it explicitly clear to everyone, digital infrastructure isn't just an IT department issue anymore. No, it is the fundamental bedrock of national security and resilience. It's a total reframing of how Europe views its place in the digital world. So, how are they doing it? Well, this new independence is being enforced through some sweeping regulations. We all know the foundational GDPR by now, but newer, aggressive legislation like the Digital Services Act, the Data Governance Act, and the Data Act are creating very strict asymmetric rules. What that means is the larger the societal impact a tech giant has, the stricter the rules they face in Europe. The message is crystal clear here. If you want access to the lucrative European market, you're going to play by European sovereignty rules. Let's move into Section 4, DNS for EU, securing the web. Okay, so regulation is just one piece of the puzzle, right? You need actual physical infrastructure. And that brings us to DNS for EU, launched in June 2025. Think of the DNS as the internet's fundamental phone book. It translates the website names we type in into the IP addresses that computers actually use. Historically, Europe relied heavily on non-EU providers for this. But this new secure public resolver operates entirely within EU borders, strictly prohibits data monetization, and ensures total privacy compliance. What makes this initiative super interesting is the flexibility it hands right back to the citizen. This free public resolver gives individual users 5 distinct configuration options. You can just stick with a basic unfiltered connection if you want, or you can step it up to block malicious and fraudulent sites. You can even configure it at the infrastructure level to filter out inappropriate content for kids or block ads entirely. It's literally putting infrastructure-level control directly into the hands of European citizens. Moving right along to Section 5, the rise of sovereign cloud.
Beyond just securing the web's phone book, the EU is fundamentally changing where its data physically lives. Sovereign cloud has emerged as an umbrella of solutions ensuring organizations keep strict control of their data's location and who can access it. This solves a massive headache. See, US cloud providers are subject to the US Cloud Act, which can actually conflict directly with Europe's GDPR when it comes to data access by law enforcement. Sovereign cloud just cuts right through that knot. The data and the laws governing it remain strictly European. So it's really no surprise that half of all European companies are actively migrating to this technology. And it's not just about ticking a compliance box for the regulators. It's about unlocking massive enterprise benefits. By moving to a sovereign cloud, companies gain increased operational control, enhanced resiliency against international disruptions, and way better supplier integration. It takes regulatory compliance and flips it from an operational headache into a real competitive advantage that builds deep trust with consumers. And we're already seeing this implemented on the ground in some really bold ways. Take the region of Schleswig-Holstein in Germany. They have actively replaced nearly 70% of their Microsoft systems with open source alternatives. Their goal is minimal big tech usage by the end of the decade. Meanwhile, the city of Helsingborg in Sweden isn't leaving anything to chance. They are out there actively running digital blackout simulations to stress test their local resilience today. Let's wrap up with Section 6, a new global tech power. As we step back and look at these massive infrastructure shifts, it's really important to understand the nuance here. Experts are quick to note that achieving 100% technological autonomy is incredibly complex, if not entirely impossible. Global collaboration is still absolutely necessary. So it's really a delicate balancing act between strategic autonomy, controlling local services, and global interdependence. Europe isn't trying to totally isolate itself. It's trying to regain leverage, so it's no longer just a passive consumer of foreign technology. Ultimately, as Europe weaponizes its regulatory power and pours billions into localized infrastructure, we are watching the rules of the digital economy being rewritten in real time. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Will this aggressive strategy successfully carve out a new, independent global tech power? And if it does, how exactly will the rest of the world react? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this helped map out the massive digital shifts happening across Europe right now.